Hello, everybody. Welcome back. This is your tropical update for September 28th. Catastrophic Category 4 Hurricane Ian is currently making landfall near Cape Coral in western Florida. Tropical Depression 11 also formed. Please note that with Ian having winds of 155 miles an hour, it is the fifth strongest hurricane by wind speed to make landfall in the United States on record, behind Michael in 2018, Andrew in 1992, Camille in 1969, and the Labor Day hurricane in 1935, all of which obviously retired in terms of the named ones. Here is the look at the Atlantic. Quiet aside from Ian wreaking havoc over the southeastern United States and Florida Peninsula. Tropical Depression 11 also out there, expected to be brief. Here's the impact map associated with Ian. Mainly, it's really the only thing lighting up the map, and lighting up the map it is with extreme impact, storm surge up to 18 feet, winds gusting to 190 miles per hour. Of course, isolated rainfall amounts well in excess of 2 feet, as well as tornadoes being a concern, especially in the Orlando area over the next day or two. As, of course, you move out away from the center of the storm, that high risk is in red, where we could see some higher level hurricane impacts, as well as widespread rainfall greater than 2 feet or greater than a foot. So that's significant. And continuing on downward, the secondary landfall point likely somewhere near South Carolina, where we could see either a weaker Category 1 hurricane or a strong tropical storm make landfall in that location. Widespread rainfall likely throughout the Carolinas, Georgia, and as it heads into Appalachia as well. So those are kind of our impacts associated with Ian on a broad scale. We'll talk more about them specifically one by one here in a second. Once again, here's the satellite image of Ian as it makes landfall now on the Florida Peninsula. It's moving very slowly. Remember, we've had hourly updates. That is, it's been on American radar for over a day now. It's been very slowly making its way up, and it will continue to move very slowly. As we can see from the latest cone from the Hurricane Center, by tomorrow morning, it's still over Florida, and by tomorrow evening, it's finally exiting Florida. And that's not even the end of the impacts to the United States, as by Friday afternoon, it makes landfall a second time near the Georgia-South Carolina border, where a hurricane watch, as well as, of course, tropical storm warning in effect. Warnings are in effect all the way from halfway down the Florida Panhandle down to the South Carolina, North Carolina border. All of Florida, of course, hurricane warnings there as well as tropical storm warnings over much of the Bahamas. Storm surge watches and warnings remain in effect for many of these locations as well. As I mentioned, we could have up to 18 feet of storm surge in many of these areas. A high-end Category 4 hurricane, winds of 155 miles per hour. This is a big one. As you can see from the radar, of course, it looks like a strong, healthy hurricane. That's what it is. The rain for much of South Florida is beginning to decrease. In fact, in some areas, they may not see a single more drop of rain. But nonetheless, storm surge is especially significant as we talk about the Naples, Marco Island, Fort Myers area. Anywhere about south of the center of the storm is experiencing major storm surge at the moment. Some places already seeing significant storm surge to near the tops of houses. And so just, I mean, you go on the internet, you can see this. It doesn't take a meteorologist or myself or anybody to tell you that. You can see it for yourself. We live in that age now. As we can see, of course, from the watches and warning map, lots of watches and warnings in effect for the United States coastlines, of course, most especially the Florida Peninsula, and again, Georgia and South Carolina as well later on. Recon's making its last few passes on the storm before it makes landfall. Of note, by the way, the pressure, a recorded land sensor of pressure recorded 942 millibars. So it is pretty darn certain this storm is as strong as we're saying it is. On radar, even, the velocity signatures, which albeit are up high in the air, are well into the Category 5 range. Again, it's well into the air. That's not surface wind speed. Flooding rain, also a major concern with this one. Again, we can definitely see in excess of 15 inches over much of the area. Certainly going to see areas exceed a foot, likely areas exceeding a foot or two. And then, of course, even into North Carolina and South Carolina, we could see isolated amounts to a foot of rain. So again, significant amounts. South Florida, as you see, finally beginning to taper off in terms of the amount of rainfall. Again, most of the rainfall is on the north side of the storm. South side of the storm is getting a little bit of dry air. And also South Florida already got pretty wet on that south side of the storm. Taking a look at storm surge, like I said, 12 to 18 feet. Charlotte Harbor, that's that Cape Coral, Fort Myers area, down to Bonita Beach, northward to Inglewood, as well as north and south of those areas, still seeing significant storm surge, perhaps up to 10 feet. And as we head down into the Keys, of course, 3 feet or so, and the same as we head northward along the peninsula. On the other side of Florida, Georgia and South Carolina, we could see values as high as 6 feet of storm surge, especially between Florida and Georgia. And then between Georgia and South Carolina, we could see 3 to 5 feet storm surge as far north as Surf City, North Carolina. Winds also a big concern with this. Major hurricane force winds possible anywhere in pink. The red area is going to experience hurricane force winds, gale force winds in orange, and tropical storm force winds in yellow. As you can see, not all of the county warning areas are offering this product, and so it's a little spotty in areas, especially in the Panhandle region of Florida. But you can definitely see the impacts to the Georgia coast, South Carolina, portions of North Carolina, and the entirety of the Florida Peninsula due to this storm and its wind threat. Tornadoes are also a threat. As I mentioned, the Storm Prediction Center up to 10% chance of tornadoes in the Orlando area, and that will continue to migrate northward on the north and east sides of the storm as it makes its way into the United States. Again, as it begins to make landfall, it will lose strength, which is good, and thus the tornado risk will decrease with it as well. There's still some decent amount of spread after about a day from now. As I mentioned, in about a day, the storm's probably going to be north of Orlando as probably about a Category 1, maybe a tropical storm. We'll kind of have to see on that. And then it's going to move over the Atlantic, probably not strengthen much. And then the question is, does it move inland quickly, take a super tight, close turn towards Georgia, or does it take a little bit of a wider turn up towards South Carolina? We don't exactly know that yet. But still windy and rainy weather expected for that area, as well as a little bit of storm surge. Nothing like what Florida is seeing right now. Again, significant impacts to Florida that cannot be overstated. It's just crazy. Here's Tropical Depression 11, looking like a tropical depression. Could become a tropical storm here within the next day or so. After that, it won't even be a tropical cyclone anymore. The European showing much of the same of what I already mentioned, is that there's a wide range of possibilities later on in terms of does it hit Georgia or South Carolina. It really doesn't matter. Honestly, I mean, it's rain and wind to those areas anyways, and our focus is on the people of Florida, especially Western Florida, between basically Tampa, Naples. I've been saying this whole time, between about St. Petersburg and Naples is where I thought the majority of impacts would be, and that's seeming to be the case. Tropical Depression 11, again, expected to be short-lived and not that much action after the fact. The GFS showing much the same. Again, a decent range of possibilities with Ian, 11 dissipating quickly, and then not many more tropical storms after that, giving us a period of silence for about a week or so, hopefully, once we get rid of Ian. But in the meantime, Ian expected to become one of the most notable hurricanes in history, very catastrophic to the people of Florida. That's all for now. Chris Sixton and Further, Catholic Media.